Yes, guys, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell for me. So, Shane Mcguigan, former trainer of two-time heavyweight champion of the world, Daniel Dubois, has come out and made comments in which he has laid out his opinion that Daniel Dubois would lose in a potential matchup to heavyweight prodigy Moses Itauma. Let's talk about it. So, when I initially came across Mcguigan's comments, I thought that maybe there was going to be an air of bitterness and resentment, given that Daniel Dubois fired him, went with Don Charles, has experienced a lot of success, made a lot of money, right? Had high-profile wins over, of course, Fabio Wardley, but also Anthony Joshua, also Philip Hergovich, and Jarrell Big Baby Miller, earning large purses along the way. So the losses to Alexander Usyk, one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, notwithstanding, Daniel Dubois has been feasting, right? And even though he lost to Usyk, he still made a lot of money. And of course, it's right to assume that Mcguigan would have taken his cut of those purses for training Dubois. So one would expect that there's some bitterness. However, after watching Mcguigan's comments in full context, I don't think that's the case. And I actually think he comes across as fairly credible. He's very well spoken, very knowledgeable, but also just given the fact that he gave Dubois a lot of credit. He was very praiseworthy of Dubois' performance, and it seemed to be very complimentary of the work that he and Don Charles did this previous Saturday in defeating Daniel Dubois. The main criticism from Mcguigan actually was leveled towards Ben Davidson for not pulling Fabio Wardley out sooner, given the amount of damage he was taking. So Mcguigan's comments carry a lot of credibility. You always have to take every story about sparring with a grain of salt, right? Pensée de sel, because you have people like Martin Bacoli and his trainer Billy Nelson who engage in rampant hyperbole and exaggeration in order to hype themselves up and in order to garner more attention for their own financial enrichment, right? They're just interested in the big fight, so they're gonna say whatever, right? They engage in the pantomime and the WWE theatrics in order to sell fights, right? So you always have to take it with a grain of salt. However, you also have to sometimes lend credibility to them, because sparring rumors can be confirmed, right? It was rumored that Mike Tyson was sparring poorly, and then we saw footage of him getting knocked out in his fight with, I should say, Buster Douglas. We saw Anthony Joshua look absolutely terrified and petrified of Daniel Dubois when they fought each other, which in my opinion lends credibility to the rumor that Daniel Dubois iced AJ in sparring, just given how many fundamental errors AJ was making. His body language, the way he walked to the ring, the face-off, right? If you juxtapose AJ's demeanor when he faced off against Francis Ngannou, right? It was an ice-cold stare. And then you juxtapose that with how he faced off against Daniel Dubois. He's looking everywhere, very nervous, along with just out-of-character behavior from him, asking the crowd the day before the fight to pray for him, but then trying to be a gangster when he does the face-to-face interview, right? The 1v1 interview with Dubois, and obviously he had Ade in the middle. So he couldn't decide if he wanted to be a gangster or if he wanted to be T.D. Jakes and Martin Luther King no one knows. And I think he was confused. And I think that's what being nervous and anxious can do to you. Sometimes you can just forget to do the most basic of things when you're extremely nervous. You can forget how to sign your name. You can forget how to drive a car. You can forget how to put the key in the keyhole, you know? So AJ's demeanor and performance in the lead up to the fight, in the build up to the fight, and during the fight itself, to me, lent a lot of credence to the rumor that Dubois knocked him out in sparring. So you never know, but in my opinion, Shane Mcguigan comes across as very credible. Getting to what he actually said, he basically concluded that Itauma's IQ, his speed, his punch selection, right? Itauma has a you can see the Eastern European in him, in his angles, right? They have very good angles. Lomachenko. I was just watching Triple G last night when he fought Gabe Rosado, and just the angles he was using and the way he throws punches, right? Triple G did this against Steve Rolls as well. He throws punches with these weird kind of angles and lands right on the top of the head, right? This area right here, this area right here, for some reason, Daniel Dubois is very, very vulnerable. I mean, we all are, right? I've been knocked out before, and I was hit on the temple, right? Hooking with a hooker. Had my chin in there and got smacked. But, you know, when you have guys like that who throw those kind of angles, it can really cause you to be discombobulated and disoriented. So you think about Itauma's angles, and you think about his athleticism as well, right? Itauma, along with a lot of the UK heavyweights, right? The UK is the center of the boxing world, right? I'm an American. I live right here in the capital, right? I live in Washington, D.C. I'm as American as it gets, but I will 100% cede to my UK subscribers that the United Kingdom, Great Britain, is the Mecca of boxing. I don't know if you guys want to be called Mecca, right? A lot of Brits resent the Islamification of their country, which is an interesting topic. Maybe I'll delve into that one day. You know, nobody seems to enjoy living in London Stan right now. But that aside, the United Kingdom as the best heavyweights in the world, right, outside of Alexander Usyk, of course, and Ajit Kabayel, the best heavyweights are based in the UK, right? Joseph Parker is a Kiwi, but he's really an honorary Brit. I wouldn't be surprised if he has British citizenship at this point, just given his connection with the country. So guys like Itauma, AJ, Fury, Dubois, they'd be in the NFL or the NBA easily. That's just how athletic they are, you know. Another video I want to touch on one day is the decline of the American heavyweight, and these sports play a major role. It's not just the pro leagues, it's college, it's high school. There's way more opportunity for big, strong American kids to go into, right? I remember I was at the barber shop and there was this guy who played for the Seattle Seahawks in the chair, right? He was getting cut by my barber. I was next. And when I mean this nigga stood up out the chair and was 6'8", 300 pounds with no stomach. Yeah, he's probably on PEDs like all your favorite boxers. But still, man, those dudes exist in America and they ain't boxing. So we have Jermaine Franklin and Jarrell Miller. We get the scraps. We get the guys who aren't good enough to go into other pro sports. Guys in the UK are good enough to go professional in other sports. Like, imagine Dubois as an edge rusher. Get out of here, dog. Get out of here. He's terrorizing Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Matthew Stafford, you name it. Like, he's terrorizing those dudes. Anyways, man, I got off on a bit of a rant there. McGuigan thinks that all the factors, the intelligence, the angles, the ring IQ, the athleticism, would just be too much for Daniel Dubois. I tend to agree with that assessment. I think Daniel Dubois is very effective once he gets your rhythm, once he finds his range, once he's able to touch you with his jab, and he knows that he's fast enough to touch you. He knows that he can hit you from the angles he wants to throw at, and the fight is at his pace, at his rhythm, on his timing. He has difficulty locking on to other fighters' timing, which it's no insult. It's difficult to do, right? I fought a few guys that are high-level amateurs, or I've sparred them, I should say, not fought them, but I've sparred them. And it's a different kind of a butt whooping, right? Dave Chappelle said that when Floyd schooled Canelo, it was a Harvard ass whooping. And a Harvard ass whooping is different than losing a slugfest. It impacts your mind in a different way, right? When a guy is touching you and he's slipping, and he's rolling, and he's blocking, and he's catching the shots, parrying, and he's just moving, he's using the wand, he's feinting, he's doing all this stuff, and you're just sitting there trying to react, and you're figuring that out, and then all of a sudden, boom, your head snaps back. That impacts your mind and your psyche differently than when you got a guy, it's like, hey, let's come in, let's get on the inside and let's work, right? Let's just work. Don't hug, don't do none of that, let's work. It's a different kind of vibe. Even if you're getting the worst of it in a kind of inside fighting type spar where you guys make that, non-verbal agreement to go after it and not fiddle around and feel each other out, it's more gratifying. It's weird if you've never sparred before, but if you have, those of you who know what I'm talking about. It's more gratifying. It is gratifying though to outbox a guy and play with the guy and, just touch him and do what you want and kind of work on your game and work on different things. But going toe to toe with the guy, even if you're getting the worst of it, in a way is more gratifying because it's like, all right, I went toe to toe. He got the better of it, but I'm still here. Maybe that's my weird mind, but I think a lot of people who boxed or participated in other combat sports can kind of understand where I'm coming from. So the question is Moses Itauma good enough to deliver a Harvard ass whooping to Daniel Dubois? The jury's still out, man. Now, I've picked Itauma to beat Daniel Dubois. But I have to be real, it's purely based off the eye test. And I'm not playing both sides. I just genuinely think based off the eye test against low-level competition, right? Jermaine Franklin, yeah, he's good. He's solid. But again, he's not an elite athlete. Like, he's a guy that knows how to stay safe, move around the ring for the most part. But when he's in there with an elite athlete who wants to be dangerous, we saw what happened, right? Don't tell me about a Dillian White who had already been iced by AJ, Povetkin, and Fury, right? Dillian had been washed prior to even fighting Tyson Fury, right? I don't give Fury any credit for beating Dillian. Why would I give Moses credit or Jermaine Franklin for getting in the ring with Dillian, right? Dillian had already been iced by an ancient Povetkin. Why would I give him credit for that? That's silly to me. So why Jermaine Franklin going the distance, going life and death, 50-50, 55-45 with Dillian White is not that impressive to me. Ditto with Joshua, right? You're dealing with a Joshua who is, I don't even know. He's an enigma in a lot of ways. He's a weird kind of fighter because he has all the attributes, but it's just part that's missing in his mind, that where he just doesn't trust himself and he doesn't seem to have any instincts. He always needs to outsource his thinking to someone else. And so Franklin dealt with a Joshua who was in the ring trying to figure out if he wants to be Vladimir Klitschko for the rest of his career. That wasn't an AJ that was trying to be dangerous. So Jermaine Franklin to me is, he's okay. He's nothing more than a gatekeeper. So we haven't seen Moses in there with anybody who has any sort of firepower. We've seen Dubois get in there with guys who have a lot of heat and have an enormous amount of success. So I'm not changing my mind, and I'm not trying to straddle the fence, but I think the fight is more competitive. You know, maybe the more I think about it. I still would favor Itauma though, because I haven't seen any heavyweight moving like him, right? I just haven't. He just moves in such an idiosyncratic fashion. It's just hard to imagine all of these other guys we have way more data on beating him. However, I have to acknowledge that Itauma hasn't dealt with any firepower. Dubois dealt with Hrgovic. Joe Joyce, he fought a prime Joe Joyce. Yeah, he quit. You know, I'm sick of debating the word quit and all that. Watch my other videos. Where you're at with that is where you're at with that. You have your opinions on them. I have my opinion on them. I'm over that debate. It's boring to me now. But Dubois got in there with prime Joe Joyce. He got in there with prime Hrgovic, prime Jarrell Miller. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe, we'll say maybe. I think he took Anthony Joshua out of his prime. So I'm gonna say that he fought a prime Joshua, right? I think that Joshua's career will be demarcated, right? There'll be the Andy Ruiz fight, there'll be the Usyk fight, and there'll be the Dubois fight, right? And the Klitschko fight, right? Those are kind of the seminal moments of his career. And I think that the Dubois fight will signify the end of AJ's prime. But Dubois fought a prime AJ, fought a prime Fabio. Fabio is 31, right in the middle of his prime. An elite athlete. Yeah, he kind of sucks at boxing in a lot of ways, but an elite athlete and a tough guy with a ton of heart. And he beat all those guys. And then you also have to factor in what Itauma himself has said about Dubois. And Itauma has acknowledged that Daniel Dubois has an elite jab. Everyone says Dubois' jab feels like a backhand. So there's a lot to make from it. Again, Itauma is just so impressive. He's such a specimen, excuse me. I think he would beat Dubois. But it's interesting, right? Guys get better. Guys improve, right? Now, Itauma has improved as well. And especially physically, he's growing, right? I think in his most recent fight, he actually looked like a man, right? He's filled out. He's no longer just like a big teenager, a big, strong teenager. He actually looked like a grown man. He's filling out. He's leaning out. He's losing that baby fat. And he really looked like a grown man in the ring against Franklin. So, of course, there's some growth and maturation on Itauma's part, but there's also growth and maturation on Dubois' part. He's only 28. You know, that's not a kid, but he's still a relatively young guy who has an enormous amount of experience. I mean, when you're talking about resumes, as far as UK boxers, who has a better resume than Daniel Dubois, right? When you factor in wins and losses, right? It's all a part of your CV, the ups and the downs, the peaks and the troughs. It's all a part of your CV. So who actually has a better resume than him? AJ, Fury, it's very debatable at this point, just given all the guys Daniel Dubois has been in the ring with and all the guys that he's beaten. It's very debatable. I'm not gonna say it's a definitive yes, but it's at the point now where it's debatable. And if Dubois is able to get a couple more scalps on his CV, we got to have that discussion, right? I would even say Dubois has a better heavyweight resume, not an overall resume, but a better heavyweight resume than Alexander Usyk. So it's very interesting. It's an interesting conversation. It's an interesting debate. Interesting comments from Shane Mcguigan. Again, I'm gonna stick with my pick. I'm gonna take Moses Itauma if it happens, right? He's the mandatory. They both fight for Frank Warren, the best promoter in the world. So it's an interesting fight. I hope it happens this year. I hope it happens next. Why not? I think both of these guys have big profiles now. I think that's a stadium fight in the UK. You know, I would love to go to that. You know, take my money. If I don't go, I'm definitely dropping money on the pay-per-view. I don't care, dude. Take my money. They're gonna gouge us anyways. It's not like I can prevent them from gouging us. So I'm excited about that fight. I hope it happens next. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. I'm out. Peace.